As I've evolved from my humble beginnings, I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of rooms. The more people I've met, the more stories I've learned. Stories of passion, trauma, triumph, and resilience. These are the stories that inspire us, that remind us of the human spirit. We can all learn from the untold stories in each of us, regardless of where you come from. And now, I'm excited to share these stories with you. This is Epic Conversations. Welcome everybody to Epic Conversations with Delrisha, where we talk to everyday people who have been through extraordinary circumstances. We tell human stories of trauma, triumph, resilience, but also human stories of joy and overcoming and strength and wisdom. And today we have a special guest, one of my big sisters, one of my dearest friends, Myeisha Essex. Welcome her to the room.
Hey, y'all.
And in a minute, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to folks who don't know your work, because you do so much. It's hard for me to even package it. But one of the things that I'm really hopeful and excited to bring to folks who are listening and those who are watching is your story of navigating. So Myeisha is from California. We met at Bennett College probably about 15 years ago now, 14, 15
It is 15, about 15 years ago in Greensboro, North Carolina. Shout out to the Bennett Bells.
Shout out to the Bennett Bells. And a lot of
we were both journalism majors.
We were both journalism majors. And actually, Myeisha is one of the co-founders of Bell Magazine, which was our on-campus magazine, which was really modeled after Essence Magazine. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about her story, how literally the journalism department in Greensboro, North Carolina, on the campus of Bennett College, the oldest historically Black college for women, catapulted her career into doing all of these incredible things. So Myeisha, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you've been up to over the past 10 years, since just high level overview. We're gonna get into the nuggets.
Yes. Well, I'm so honored to be here and to feel your beautiful energy and your spirit. This is such a pleasure. I remember you when you were just a little baby college student, and you were always so ambitious, and you always just had like a big plan for your life. And to see all of that playing out, it's really been a joy to watch as a friend, as a sister, as a colleague, all of the above. I think our relationship has really been, so many different titles. You know, we've been like coworkers, we've been business partners, we've been sisters, we've been friends, we've been like so many different things. So this is a conversation between real sisters.
It's like a real testament to the beauty of sisterhood. It's like, I feel like we heard it a lot on campus, sisterhood this, sisterhood that, sisterhood. And it kind of sounded like a little played out, but like when you move through life in the world, you really realize the power of sisterhood.
Yeah. And honestly, everything is energy. Like the law of attraction basically says that like things vibrate together. Right. And so I feel like even the friends that you went to college with or high school with, the ones that you're able to stay in touch with, it's because you vibrated together at a certain place. But if that relationship is able to like transcend through so many different seasons and chapters of life, I just think that's a blessing. Yeah. But I'll jump back to introduction. My name is Myeisha Essex. I'm a journalist by trade. I've always been a storyteller. I am also a wellness entrepreneur. I am the founder of Essex Media Group, which is a boutique digital agency. We focus on marketing, digital strategy, talent management, and I also host mindfulness experiences. So the bulk of my work today is really working with entrepreneurs in the wellness space. And I also travel nationwide teaching mindfulness meditation to Black folks.
Love that. And Myeisha, you've had a bit of a journey since you and I like actually worked in the thick of it together, which was at Bennett College. What was that transition? Just to give people, because I think a lot of Bells follow you too. So I feel like folks that will be listening to this will come from one of two places. Either they're like listening right now. If you're listening right now, you're one of my earliest fans. I rock with you. So shout out to the listeners right now. I feel like they're either listening because they really rock with Dell and they want to know what she's up to. But then there's like this other group, which are the mutual relationship we have, where it's the Bennett Bells, where they're like, oh, this is Myeisha. I want to know what she's been up to. So if you can we're talking to the Bells for a brief moment. What was that journey like from Bennett you went to Columbia, you got another degree there in communications, you came back to LA. Just give us a little bit of what that experience is before we get into what you're doing now and the stories that have led you to where you are right now.
Okay. I will say too that this feels like, even though it's only 10, 15 years ago, it feels like such a different chapter of my life. Like the things that I've experienced have been so beautiful and exciting, but it also feels like another version of Myeisha. So even going back, it just feels like another lifetime ago. I don't know if that makes any sense. I've just have transcended so much. But during my time at Bennett, I always wanted to be an entertainment reporter. That was like my goal. I wanted to work at a huge magazine and have a corner office and write cover stories. I really wanted to be Sydney on Brown Sugar. That was like my ultimate goal. She was the editor-in-chief of Double XL in the movie. After I graduated from Bennett, I went to Columbia and I got my master's in journalism. At the time, I was an intern at Essence magazine. At Essence, I was a professional intern. I entered there for about 2 years. After I left Essence, I went to work for a talk show called The Real. I worked on The Real for the first 3 seasons and really helped build the digital space for that brand. So what you saw online and our social media accounts. After I left The Real, I became the managing editor of The Shade Room, which is a massive entertainment blog and really helped that brand grow and to develop into like the beautiful full news agency that you see it being today. Mm-hmm. After my time at The Shade Room, I went on to Entertainment Tonight. I was the senior editor at Entertainment Tonight. And then from there, in my personal life, I really started going through, I guess what you would call like a spiritual journey or a spiritual transition. And I no longer felt like our purpose here on earth is really to be the highest expression of ourselves. And I no longer felt that I was using my gifts in a way that was really allowing my purpose to shine. Mm-hmm. Not that there's anything wrong with entertainment news. I'm just saying for me and for my own personal timeline. And I really just started to kind of become I'd had these dreams of being an entertainment journalist, and that's what my whole career took me. And I kind of got to the point where I had achieved the goals that I had wanted to achieve. So I kind of sat back and kind of observed my life instead of just being the player, like going to work, doing this. And when I stepped back and observed, I really realized that it was kind of time for me to wipe the slate clean and create a new set of goals for myself. Mm-hmm. So in that process, I started to get really deep in my meditation practice and really studying mindfulness. And that was a truer reflection of where my life was at the time. So when I left entertainment news, I started working at Calm, the sleep and meditation app. I worked on the marketing team there, which was a beautiful experience. And even from there, I realized that I wanted to specifically teach my people about the beauties of meditation and mindfulness and really I started to have a desire to assist people in their healing and wellness journeys. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at today.
I love that. And I think, that high level overview is really helpful because I think it gives people the texture of like what you were pursuing. Cause I think you went through there were a lot of sub stories in there, right? That have molded you and shaped you into the person that you are now.
I think if we want to get into a sub story, I think a really big part of that for me is I was allowing other people's views or definitions of success really define me. So I had never really made a decision on my own before without, talking to my parents about it first, or talking to my college professors, or talking to my friends to see how they felt about it. And so the things that I was pursuing was really because it made me look good. I think a lot of it was like based on ego, job titles, positions, things that I went after. And it wasn't until I really was able to tap in with myself and listen to me that I really kind of got the confidence and the strength to start pursuing things that mattered to me and felt fulfilling to me. Mm-hmm. And it really was just a process of me redefining what success looked like. Because after you've reached all the goals they tell you to reach, The degrees, they tell you that that'll make you feel fulfilled. They'll tell you the relationship will make you feel fulfilled. They'll tell you a certain amount of money, a job title. And when you strip all those things away, you as a person, you're so much more than that. And I was allowing all of those things around me to really feel my ego and feel my sense of self, my sense of worth. So during that season of my life, I really stripped everything.
About how old were you when that happened? When you
were
were
30. I was 30.
Because I find that I'm 31 now. And actually, I forgot how old I was because I feel like after 30, people stop asking how old you are, I guess. Or at least I've been experiencing that so much. So I was like, am I 31 now? Mm-hmm. But I think about like where I am at this stage of my life and the level of just more like confidence, and I'm more sure about myself, and I have more clarity. But a lot of that came after a period in my life around the same time where I was 29, where had gone through that period to really recognize those patterns. You know, what was the like solidifying moment that helped you realize like, wait a minute, this is a pattern here, and I need to kind of shift what's going on here. Because you went through a whole spiritual journey that you're still on, but like this was like you spent time and practice investing in this as a lifestyle. And so I just want to know, like, what happened that kind of triggered that, like, okay, I'm going to do a different thing now.
When I turned 30, I was in a relationship. We were living together. That relationship didn't last, which I'm so grateful, Lord, that you have so much more in store for me. Praise God. That relationship ended. I moved into my own place. I had quit my job. I was really involved in my church at the time. And I had kind of stepped away from my duties in church because I worked in church. So I spent a lot of my time there. I stepped away from that. And it was really just a time of me stepping away from all the titles that I held in my life. It wasn't me not being into church anymore. It wasn't me not wanting to work or not liking my job. It was me trying to I was searching for something and I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I have the understanding that I was really trying to strip all the titles away from myself. So like I said, I got a lot of my sense of like pride from my degrees, my sorority, my job titles, my relationship title, the extracurricular things that I did outside of work. And I really stripped all of that from myself and really just went into a really deep state of healing. And that's when I really tapped into my meditation practice and was really just asking myself some really like deep questions as far as like, who am I and what's my purpose here? And how can I use my life to be a vessel to really serve humanity? Mm-hmm. And how can I wake up every day and feel a sense of like fulfillment and purpose? More so in a way that I am being the highest expression of Myeisha. Mm-hmm. And I was running myself ragged at that time in my life. I developed panic attacks. I had anxiety. I was overweight, in my opinion. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't eating healthy. I started, a lot of the things that I dealt with in my childhood had really started to like pop up and started to affect me in different ways that they had never affected me before in my life. And it just kind of really sat me down. And when God sat me down, I remember just praying and saying, Lord, I surrender all. I was listening to that song. And when I surrendered all, that's when all the things that I thought meant something to me really just kind of like the path just cleared. And it was just Myeisha and God. And from there, it's when I got really, really deep into like my own personal healing journey. For me, that journey was a lot of books. It was a lot of reading. It was also a major shift in my diet. I stopped eating meat. I had stepped away from eating sugar and white flour products for a long time. I fell in love with like floral design. I realized I really like flowers and fragrances. I started learning how to cook like vegan dishes. And that was like a really big joy for me, seeing the different colors. I started walking in nature and grounding. It's just, I started to become I started to have a stronger sense of fulfillment and sense of purpose that I didn't have attached to, that this is just my job. Mm-hmm. And so from there, I had this light and this glow, and I was attracting different types of niggas. And yeah, and I just loved it, you know? And so from there, I was like, oh, I want to share this energy with the world. And like everybody saw the shift in me. My confidence was different. I know even in job interviews, I no longer cared. Like I wasn't talking to that person. I'm talking to God, the universe. The universe has a design plan for me, a design plan for you. And there's nothing that's going to stop that as long as we're walking in purpose and we're meeting the vibration of what we want to manifest. So I stopped looking at people as giving me opportunities or as doors closing. Anytime an opportunity didn't work for me, it was like, okay, like rejection is protection. God has something better for me. This is exciting. And so my life just became this huge flow of ease. It was just this whole flow, like this meditative state of like happiness and joy, because I was no longer stuck at the things that like made me stuck before.
Yeah.
There I was like, oh, I need to teach Black people how to heal and how to like tap into this. And I just got a whole new joy that I don't think I was able to even experience before.
Can you talk about, first of all, I think it's so powerful. And you really are really speaking my language right now, because I feel like I've gone through a similar kind of experience. And one of my contributions to my own family, if you will, is demonstrating that you can be free of living in crisis and in trauma and in perpetual state of anxiety and fear and sadness and rage. And so can you talk a little bit about what led you to that place where you felt like you had to be accomplishing all the time? What in Myeisha, or in Myeisha's rearing, or in your, kind of early roots led you to achieve in that way, where it even got to the point that like you couldn't hold that anymore? You had to kind of strip yourself. How did you evolve? Where did that come from?
I'm trying to think of how honest I'm gonna be on this podcast.
Girl, this podcast is called Epic Conversations. So this is people dealing with real shit that are listening, And matter of fact, I'm glad you said that, because I got myself some water, and it's a good little water break.
Well, you know what? We're gonna let spirit lead here, and what needs to be shared is gonna be shared. Yes, the spirits and spirit are leading.
And our ancestors. And you know what? And wherever you go, I'll match your fly.
Yes. Can you pour out a libation for my mommy?
I absolutely can.
Yes. My mother transitioned 2 months ago, so we're gonna celebrate her in this moment before I get into the childhood drama.
That's right. We're gonna pour a libation.
Yes. Speak her name. Talia, love you, mommy.
Love you. And thank you for this beautiful gem you are sharing with us. We know you're watching, and we know you're proud.
And I'm just a reflection of her. What a beautiful spirit and soul she was. And I'm so grateful that she was my mother and guardian on my journey. My mother and I both experienced abuse in our childhood. She was such a beautiful mother and protector for me, but there were also certain things that she couldn't give me because she never learned them herself. And so I went, as a child, I think I became an overachiever to really kind of overcompensate some of the things that made me feel unsafe. Or I've always had a really strong sense of awareness as a child, maybe like, I guess what people would call an old soul. And there becomes a point of time in your life where you kind of realize that like, oh, the adults don't know what they're doing neither, like most kids, you'll grow up and you realize as an adult, like, oh, my parents are human, but I kind of had that realization really, really young as a kid, like, oh, they're really just figuring this out, And so it forced me to have a really strong relationship with God, even as a child, because that's really what like grounded me. But I just always had this like vision that if I go to college and I become really successful, that I can create a space and a life for myself and kind of like escape. So I always looked at like my successes as like my airplane to like fly away to wherever I want it to be. And so I carried that, I guess you would say, motivation. And I don't necessarily know that that's a negative thing, because it also taught me all the lessons that I know today. I remember there's a quote Oprah said during a speech before that everything in your life works for you. There's not a single experience that's happened in your life that's worked against you. So there was lessons that I needed to learn at every chapter, and I welcome that, and I'm content with that. But for me, I think my sense of achievement really just came from me wanting to escape and be successful. And so in everything I did, whether it was Girl Scouts, whether it's in my sorority, whether it was in school, whether I was an usher in church for many, many years, I showed up and I went above and beyond. Even I've had multiple internships, multiple jobs, and I was that person who was like, oh, you don't want to do it? I'll do it. Oh, you don't want to stay late to work and do it? I'll do it. Oh, we need somebody who to volunteer to go and do this? I'll do it. Like that was me my whole entire life. And I think it's kind of that kind of Black women saving the day mentality, where that's all that I knew how to do was overcompensate and over show up and overperform and over be good and overshine. And I got to the point in my life where I literally crashed. I literally was having such extreme anxiety and panic attacks at that time. I told you when I turned 30, when I stripped everything, that I no longer could like regularly function. And it was because this sense of, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, maybe carrying bags with Eric. If you listen to Bag Lady today at like me at 34, that song has a completely different meaning for me. But that's where I was.
The window seat, don't want the baby. The whole song. The whole song.
Listen to Baduism today.
Oh my God.
That whole album is a spiritual experience.
I tell people all the time, honestly, I said it's every time I have a new experience as a Black woman in the world, I'm like, but I said, but our aunties and ancestors have been literally singing and writing about
it, telling us in it
forever.
Because like, again, it's the law of vibration.
Me, myself, and I. You listen to Janet Jackson. What have you done for me? Like just everybody has literally cataloged the Black woman's experience, and
but you don't understand it until you understand it.
And that's
what I realized for myself. So I was the bag lady, and I was carrying all the bags, the grocery bags, the laundry bags, the every bag. Yeah. And I dropped all that shit.
Yeah. Ooh, girl, let me tell you, it's so interesting how I was talking to somebody last week, and they were like, Black women. I think this was Miriam. I think I heard this from Miriam. I hope this was you, but she was actually telling me about something that she heard from somebody else, that like Black women, we can't afford. And I said this on my podcast with Margaret, because I was talking to her about her overcoming breast cancer. And she said something similar, right? Like I had not healed from something that had happened so long ago. And I feel like that manifested in my body, right? And so thinking like, so the quote was like something along the lines of like, Black women, we heal on the go, right? So like we actually don't even ever have the time to sit down and recalibrate or even
unless you're intentional about creating that space for yourself.
Unless you're intentional. But for a lot of us, we don't even recognize it as a problem because we're moving, right? It's not until it all comes to a halt that it's like, wait a minute, I've been living like this. You know what I'm saying? So that's really powerful to think about, like how all those experiences were like a culminating experience. So you did Queen Afua's Ascension program, which is always full with the wait list, but Queen Afua is just like the mother healer. And her work is really about Black women healing themselves and their communities. And so that self-healing really comes from how we treat our bodies. And she has her own story as well. Y'all should check out her interview on The Breakfast Club. You should also buy her book, Sacred Woman, which was written actually 20 years ago, 20 or more years ago, 21 years ago. And now is like a bestseller because people are now coming into their consciousness. So Black woman, shout out to Queen Afua. She's also the master teacher to Erykah Badu, to Lauren London, to a lot of the people that we love and hold dear to the culture. So talk to us about how you arrived there. What made you decide I'm going to do this? And what's the story there? Because I feel like when you came out on social media, it was almost like a probate. You know what I'm saying? It was almost like Myeisha, she said she's an AKA. It was almost like a probate. It was like, oh, but what is this? And I think for a lot of women who are on that journey, who have gotten to the place where you and I have gotten before, where you just get so full, they're looking for that next challenge or that next step. So talk to us about your experience ascending through her program.
Yes. Shout out to Queen Afua, my spiritual mother.
Cheers.
Cheers. You can't drink a glass of wine and Queen Afua.
You right. I'll retract that. Cheers.
Yes, cheers. I read Sacred Woman during quarantine in 2020, and the book is full of rituals. So it's really like lifestyle practices. So how to consume your tea, how to eat, how to clean your body, how to make sure that everything's moving flow, how to organize your space, your sacred space internally, your space outside, how to get in alignment with your purpose work, your partner, your family. It's really a holistic guide. And I read the book in 2020 during quarantine, but the work is so deep, and I realized that I needed assistance going through the book. I wanted to go through it again, and I wanted to be surrounded by strong mother energy. So I did the program because I'd started to come into a realization that although the people around me in my life loved me, my family and friends, and this is no shade to anyone, because my family is absolutely amazing. My friends are absolutely amazing. My teachers and professors that have fed into me are absolutely amazing. But I came to a realization as I started ascending, I realized that people can only give you advice to recreate their experiences. People can only feed you from what they have or what they know. And I realized that I was taking relationship advice. I was taking nutrition advice. I was taking wellness advice from people who hadn't ascended to the point that I wanted to grow to. It's kind of like in a workspace. If you're in a workspace and you're the smartest person there, you're not going to be able to grow to wherever you want to go next in your career because you've ascended above that. So it'd be the same thing as like an 8th grader going back to 3rd grade. It's not that the information they're learning in 3rd grade isn't relevant. It's just you've ascended above that. Mm-hmm. So for me, I realized that to create the kind of life that I wanted for myself, I needed to get outside help in healing, in motivation, in guidance. And I think that was such a beautiful part, even in my mother's and I's healing journey, because it gave me permission to reach out to get I guess I'm trying to be politically correct. What I'm really trying to say is although my mother loved me and gave me all that she could, there were certain things that she hadn't learned yet. So she didn't have that to give me. And me doing Sacred Woman gave me permission to get that elsewhere. And it was also a beautiful part, even in my mother's and I's healing journey, because from my process and her seeing me ascend and her seeing me change my life, she decided to do the Sacred Woman program as well. So yes, so my mother is a Sacred Woman, and so I did the program in 2021. My mother did the program in 2022. She actually wasn't able to ascend because she transitioned to about a month and a half before her graduation, but I was still able to be there for her and celebrate her achievement, which was still just such a beautiful thing. Even in her being in the spiritual world, it's something that we still celebrate together, and I was able to like really feel her energy. But it's really about just like healing our lineage. A lot of the trauma that we experience and go through literally lives in our DNA, and we only know how to teach our children the things that we know. And although we may love them, you only know how to teach what you know? Yeah. And so Queen Afua really taught me how to, she really just gave me the tools. I'd already been really deep in my spiritual practice, but I realized that it was a 360 thing. So the food that I consumed mattered. The dick you consume matters. The music you listen to matters. The things you watch matters. The people you take advice from matters. And I was able to really look around myself and say, hey, what do I want to feed myself every day? And that helped me blossom.
I love that. I love that you share just this idea of just being intentional and just kind of clearing house, right? Like going through each of these things and recognizing what's not serving you. And, it also makes me think about you know, as you're talking, I just can't, like, I know we have a lot of similarities, even though our upbringing was also very different, right? And so I think that's what's connected us in a lot of ways beyond just our academic and professional interests. And one of the things that, you know, I've always admired is the resilience in your relationship with your mothers and just that intergenerational experience with your grandmother. And in my family, you know, my sister and my mother, we've had to do a lot of healing together because for those who don't know, my mother is a recovering addict. So I always say she was a victim of the 1980s crack epidemic. And I use victim for folks who struggle with addiction then because they actually were never given the tools or never given the resources to recover. And they were also a part of a larger political strategy. And so therefore, they're the victims, right? It didn't just happen because it was just this thing that has been plaguing Black people who are more inclined to be addicted to drugs and, you know, narcotics. That's not a thing. It really was.
I love that you say that because you're telling her story, but you're telling it with grace. There's a background, and there's a person, and there's a spirit, and there's a soul behind that. Nobody is defined just by one era of their life. So I applaud you for honoring her story in that way.
Yeah, and I'm literally sharing this really to say, like, I see that in you as well. And there's a level of ascension and consciousness that you have to have in order to reflect back. And first of all, forgive your mother for whatever you didn't get or for whatever you felt like was missing. But then also to feel strong enough and empowered enough to heal yourself, that it has a cyclical relationship on your mom. My mom tells me all the time, you're one of my best teachers. My mom tells me this all the time. She's like, I learned so much from you. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, then why you be fighting me, girl? But you think about the power of that mother-daughter relationship, is particularly from the experience of the Black female, it's just really remarkable. It's really remarkable.
It is. I owe everything to my mom, the person that I am today, the opportunities that I've had, the love and nurturing that she's poured over my life. She devoted her whole life to her children. So I have so much gratitude for her, for the decisions that she made that have affected my life in a positive way. This is a really big part of my work, even this conversation of healing Black mother-daughter relationships, because we need each other. This relationship is really the foundation of all of the other relationships in our life. Right. Your relationship with your children, when we have them, relationship with our partners, our relationship to our work, to our purpose work. When our core relationships in our life aren't in harmony, as Queen Afua would say, isn't in ma'at, which is in balance, that tilts every other thing in our life. And our mother relationship, the woman whose womb we came through, is so it's just important. Mm-hmm. And so for me, a lot of it was grace, forgiveness, understanding, but it was also recognizing that my mom had her own story. She had her own life of fears and joys and dreams and hopes and wishes. And when I was able to look at my mom as a person, instead of looking at, oh, what didn't you give me? Or how come you didn't give this to me better? How come you didn't give this to me more? And when I gave myself permission to search for those things outside, okay, let me just say this. As a daughter, as a Black daughter, we are really hard on our mothers, because our mothers have had, especially, we're both from California, different coasts, but is it coast?
We're definitely on the same coast. So
okay, well, you from Northern California, me from Southern California.
Yeah,
but still California, right?
Yeah.
But our mothers were raised during a very detrimental time in the world, you know, like to grow up in the hood, and it's just a wild time. Yeah. Even to be a young adult. My mother had me in 1988. So it's like, my mom lived in Compton in the 80s. It was a whole war zone, you know? Yeah. So for me to think 20 years from then, I'm a 20-year-old woman, I'm a 25-year-old woman, I'm a 30-year-old woman, that all of a sudden, miraculously, she's supposed to have all these wellness tools and tools on how to be like mindful and mindfully communicate and know about the quality of your words and know how to forgive and be gentle with their approach. Like, how would they know all of these things, you know? So when I gave myself permission to receive some of the things that I felt like I didn't receive from both of my parents, when I gave myself permission to reach outside of those relationships to receive it, I became full. And when I became full, they started looking at me like, oh, I want to experience some of that joy. I want to experience that peace. And it freed them to go on their own healing journeys, because it was no longer me at her titty saying, Mama, you didn't give me this. You didn't give me this. You didn't give me this. It was a state of peace and there was no resistance.
Yeah.
And it freed her to go on her own healing journey, to where I was able to see her blossom into a place where she had peace and joy. And so, yeah, I just want to leave it at that and say that as daughters, although we may have lacked some things, sometimes we're really hard on our moms and understanding their stories and that they're women and giving them grace. And you know what it is that you need. Sometimes you're not always going to get the sorry. Sometimes you're not always going to get the recognition for the pain or them not protecting you. I'm not saying that those emotions or experiences aren't real, but you do have a responsibility to learn how to tap into God and source, and he will guide you on how to heal your heart. He will guide you on how to give you peace. And from there, it just creates a beautiful environment where also they can heal. And shouldn't that ultimately be the goal, where we both can live in harmony and be healed?
That's the idea. And I think there's just so much to be said just around just like how Black people heal, you know, like for me, my healing journey started only after I had experienced like enough traumatic stuff at one time by different family members that I felt like at the time, I was like, when I actually started adding up the equations, I was like, I don't owe none of y'all shit. Like, why am I walking around here like I owe somebody something? I don't ask nobody for nothing. I do what I'm supposed to do. And more, you know what I'm saying? Like, pride to this family than anybody in the past decade. Like, y'all you gonna have to come to me correct. You're gonna have to come to me correct.
And that's a chapter, because I went through that too, the angry stage and all of that. I will say too, the only reason why I'm an open book, I share so much about my life. Dorisha, I know, like one-on-one, I would be sharing a lot more details. I just want to be mindful right now because my family is grieving my mother's passing. So that's why I'm not going into deep details about.
This is just me sharing with you. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Like, yeah, I'm not.
Okay, we can cut that part out.
Anything out of you? Cut
that part out.
Yeah, like I'm saying that for me, I had to get to a point in my own family where first and foremost, I recognized that I was carrying shit that I didn't even know was on me. I literally had no idea. I was only aware of it because it was happening all at the same time in different relationships that like none of the all of it was the through line in these key events that happened, particularly with my family members. The root of it was that they all had some expectation of me. Mm-hmm. And when I actually started adding it up, I was like, I actually don't owe anybody anything. And I can't rely on y'all to do anything for me. You know what I'm saying? In any like meaningful way was how I felt. So that catapulted a whole experience. And that started from anger. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I didn't really realize all that I had to work on and all that was imposed on me until it was a culminating event. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to like, I love that you're sharing tools, you know what I'm saying, on like how, because you said I didn't have the tools. And that's so important because it's like, we have to help young women, older women, Black women across generations recognize when you're angry and recognize when you're anxious and recognize when you're sad. Because a lot of people don't even know how to recognize that. They're just living in it, existing in it until a series of events happens at a time. And then it's like, we shouldn't have to get to that point. But because we feel on the go, we don't recognize it, you know?
Queen Afua says that all of our relationships are a reflection of ourselves. So our relationship with our romantic partners, our relationship with our family members, all of it is just a mirror. It's a reflection of yourself. And so say you have a conversation with a family member and it gets heated at a certain point. It's just teaching you that that's an area of your life that you still need to heal in, you know? And when I was able to start, or someone made me angry or something triggered me, it was just a mirror for me, like, oh my, you still have work to do in this area. Mm-hmm. And when I started to look at it like that, I was like, oh, all these people in my life are just my teachers. because they're teaching me something for the work that I'm meant to do for the world. And if God gave me these teachers, I started looking at them and like, they're like my sparring partners. Like if you're in a boxing ring and it's like, oh, I'm about to be real strong. I'm about to be the heavyweight champion of the world. Because if God gave this person as my sparring partner, there's no way I can't walk out into the world and win in any negotiation, corporate space. Like there's nothing that I can't do if this is my sparring partner, you know?
Right.
And so when I looked at it like that, everything works for you. Nothing works against you, you know? And that was just such a beautiful lesson for me to learn. Also, as far as emotions, our emotions aren't a bad thing. And I think, well, I don't think, I know a lot of Black kids, we grew up in households where we weren't really allowed to express an array of emotions, you know? So like as a kid, you're not allowed to be angry. You don't pay no bills. Like you're not allowed to have emotions or opinions or whatever. So we suppress a lot of our emotions. And I think
that's face, right? Ain't nothing wrong with you.
Thank you. Or stop crying. Yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with why a lot of us don't have the self-insight to even be able to name our emotions because we haven't been able to fully express them, right? So when you get to a place where you realize your emotions aren't bad, they're really just, they're a guiding system, at least for me, right? So your emotions are always going to change. That's what they do. It's like a season. It's always going to change. So you just allow that emotion to run through you. If you need to cry, cry so it passes through you. If you're angry, allow yourself to be angry so it passes through you. It's when we suppress those things, and then that becomes like buildup in our hearts, and then it closes our hearts. So it's like, that's when you get to a place where it's like, oh, I don't ever want to trust again. Oh, I don't ever want to love again. Oh, I don't ever want to talk about that thing again because it's too hard and too heavy. So it's allowing like the flow of allowing yourself to experience and feel your emotions. But then for me, I started to also recognize, I learned this from The Law of Attraction, the book, that our emotions become a guiding system for us. So we're able to manifest, we're driving the cars of our lives, right? So we're able to pull in whatever we want. So we're able to manifest when you're at the high vibrational emotions. That's joy, enlightenment, excitement, pleasure, bliss. That's when you're able to pull in what you want. So for myself, even when I have like a really good laugh with a girlfriend, or I'm like really happy, I always do like a really quick mind visualization of what I want to welcome in my life, because I'm in those high emotions, right? But then when you're sad or you're crying or you're grieving, I'm in a season of grief right now, you know? But I realize when you're in those lower states of emotions, it's okay to experience them and allow them to pass through you, but you know that it's going to change. So it's like that anger or that sadness, don't stay in those emotions too long. Know that they're going to change, because just as the seasons change, your emotions are always going to go back up. But I think when you're sad, you're like, oh, I think I'm going to feel this way forever, you know? But you're not. It's going to move through you. But your motivation in getting your emotion back up, back to your joy, happiness, bliss, is because in that state, that's when you're pulling in the things that you want. Because in reality, everybody's getting what they want. Like from the person who lives in a mansion to the person who lives in wherever, like we're all pulling in the things that we want, but the things that we want are the things we constantly think about. They're the things that we go for.
In your head is what you start doing. Yeah. It's all subconscious until you.
Yes. And when you're in a constant state of sadness, you're thinking about problems, you're thinking about money issues, you're thinking about how things can go wrong instead of how they can go right. So you're still getting what you want because that's where you're spending the most of your time on. So for me, in the times where I am feeling sad or low, I allow myself to feel that emotion, but it's also important for me to allow it to pass and focus back on high vibrational thoughts, because I know that the high vibrational thoughts are going to create more of that. The same way the sad thoughts will create more of that. Does that make sense?
I love that. Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. That was a really beautiful illustration. Thank you for sharing that. And for those who are like, I really don't even know how to vibrate that high, what I would recommend is like, write down what you want. Literally anything you want. You want more money? Write it down. If there's a dollar amount on it, write it down. If there's a place you want to go, write it down. If there's a passport you need to get, write it down. If there's rent you got to figure out this month, write it down and literally just say it to yourself, even if you don't believe it. Even if you do not believe it in your heart and mind and soul, even if you don't believe it, if you fake it until you make it, exactly. If you just read it like it's true, I have more money. I live in the home of my dreams. I have security. My children are safe. They have places to play and be free. I am safe. I can live peacefully. I am in peace, right? Like if you just literally say it, you start to adopt that mindset. And guess what? Now you give your mind more pictures. You give your mind more pictures. Well, what does living in peace look like? Well, what does it mean to have freedom and play?
And the universe will start conspiring and creating pathways to give that to you.
Yeah, and really, it's not even church. I feel like part of it is the universe will do, but really, I feel like you just recognize it more. Like you're more aware to it, and so you have more clarity on what to pursue.
Well, when I say the universe is really us. Like we all live in our own world.
There you go.
So it's really what you recognize, what you see, and it's already there. Another big part of that and bringing the things in that you want is having a consistent gratitude process. And that's how you start recognizing more of the things that are going right in your life instead of the things that are going wrong.
That's right.
I also like to wait, let me get some water. We doing real good.
Yeah, but and as you're drinking your water, it makes me think about, so at that time when I was going through that moment, I was just like, I'm sick of y'all. Like, I don't owe y'all shit. Like I was in a really angry space. And then so to your point about what you're about to get into, as I decided to leave, I traveled. I literally just went for the whole
that was your fuck it tour.
The fuck you tour. Because I got to a point where I had to just start saying fuck you to people. And there are people that I love with every inch of my being, but the way that I was being, the expectations that people had on me and the way that I was being mistreated was not okay. And I didn't realize that until I started seeing it in my relationships. Because, you know, I went to college in North Carolina. So when I left home, I was gone for 4 years. I was gone for another couple of years down in Miami. I came back home, lived, you know, independently for 3, went back to grad school, moved to Chicago. So I don't ever have to, I don't really, when I show up around my family on my mother's side or on my father's side, it's really a lot of the time stop and go because I'm always gone. But this particular time, it was post-pandemic. I decided to go back home. It was a series of events. It got really, really crazy. And it wasn't just my family. So I don't want to just put this on my family. It was relationships. It was family. It was COVID-19. It was joblessness. I didn't have a job for like 2.5 years. Like it was crazy, right? Like that's how I built my business. And I was in family members, like close family members that had severe mental health that was starting to rear its head, that I was really close to. My grandfather died. My grandmother was sick. It was just crazy all at one time. And so the series of events led me to be like, whoa, pump the brakes. Fuck all y'all, because I don't owe you shit. That's where I started. But by the end of the fuck you tour, after traveling and visiting my friends and getting my soul food and being outside and experiencing fun and experiencing joy and experiencing feeding myself and reading and working out and eating, what, like literally just getting out of the environment back around the family that I created for myself, replenished me. By the time I came back around to the fuck you tour, I didn't feel like fuck you. I actually felt like thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be able to leave and go to college and have these experiences, right? So to your point about it, I'm bringing it all back because that's the thing about this first generation experience is it comes with some turmoil. And then you add intersectionality, you add Blackness, you add womanhood on that. It's going to come with some turmoil. And so when you come back to it, for us, it was around 29, 30, you start to really emerge and as a woman. And that's what I mean by like real womanhood, right? Like I've been through stages of womanhood. It wasn't until that season of my life where I was like, oh no, like I'm a woman, because I had to learn, to your point, how to do things by myself, right? I had to learn how to stand on I had to learn how to set boundaries with those. I had to learn that. And so gratitude is so important. And not only that, it's not temporary. So because I feel that gratitude and I know that that my family has also made some sacrifices for me to live the life that I now live, for me to come back and pass that kind of judgment, right? Like what? Mm-hmm. You know, because I know that I'm able to support them from that place, which is a much better place to be giving and understanding. And the boundaries haven't been shaken, y'all. So just to be clear for those who are listening, like my boundaries are rock hard now, you know, and that was a time. They're non-negotiable. It was a year and a half. That was about 2 years, actually. Some family members I'm just starting to talk to after a 2-year hiatus, because even though I had to reconcile some stuff, I also had to set some boundaries around what I will not tolerate ever again, right? And so you have the space to do that. So back to you about living through gratitude. I just thought I had to throw that nugget in there because I think it's such an important element.
Thank you for sharing that, Delrisha. That's so powerful. And I can relate to that as well, especially even now in my journey of my mother transitioning. It's been about 2 months now, but my gratitude my gratitude practice, I guess it has been process, but my gratitude practice has been my saving grace in all of this. Instead of thinking of everything that's like going wrong, my mom was my absolute best friend. And so a lot of family members or friends are like, oh, how are you so strong right now? Or how are you still going on? It's I'm tethered to source. I am tethered to God every single day. This is part of like a non-negotiable. I'm in meditation. I'm journaling the things that I'm grateful for. I'm focusing on all the beautiful things in my life, the things that I've been able to learn and experience and travel and see. And when you think about all the things that are going right in your life, you just become like overwhelmed with just a sense of gratefulness, because there are so many other women who are like us from the same places that we're from, who haven't been able to have a lot of the beautiful experiences that we have, you know? So it's like everything in life is perspective. And if anyone takes anything from listening to our conversation today, I really hope that you take away that everything that you experience, you choose the perspective that you have over it. I can look at it as, oh, I lost my mom at 34, my best friend, or I can look at it as I had 34 years with the most amazing mother. And some people don't have their mothers during childhood or during their teenage years or during their 20s. I got to have her for 34 years. So when you think about it in that perspective, you become grateful, because it's like, I had her for 3 decades and even an extra little bit of change. Like, thank you, God, for blessing me with that, you know? So everything in our life is perspective. And you realize too, everything's going to change. That's the only thing that's promised in this life, you know? So either you're going to have resistance, or like I said, this chapter of my life is called the surrender experiment. I'm in a boat and the waves is going and I'm just going with it. I'm not saying, oh, the wave's supposed to go that way, or the waves are supposed to go this way, or I'm supposed to be on shore already. I'm literally just floating and I'm enjoying the water. I'm enjoying the sky. I'm looking at the clouds. If it rains, I'm grateful for the water. It just is what it is. There's no resistance. And when you get to that place, you're just grateful. So that's what my gratitude practice. Why I keep saying process?
Well, because it is a process.
Yeah. So that's what my gratitude practice has really taught me right now.
I love that. I want to read this to you. I read it to Margaret and I'm going to keep reading it. So if you listen to this, you're going to hear it over and over again, because a good portion of my listeners are people who are first generation. You know what I'm saying? They're first generation, whatever domain. Maybe their family, they come from a family of immigrants. Maybe they are first generation, go to college. Maybe they're first generation to make some money in their careers, whatever that is. And so that whole experience, the Fuck You Tour that I've been talking about throughout this conversation, I'm writing a book about. And so I have the dedication, but I feel like this dedication I'm in part on you and to folks who are hearing it, in part because I think it is good, and also it'll keep me honest so I can get this thing done. But I think this is, so this is the dedication. This book is dedicated to the first generation champions of their families. So to you, Myeisha. Being the first to make a way for yourself in this lifetime while chartering a new way for you and your family is a relentless fight. It is thankless and heroic work. Generational trauma requires generational healing, of which the fruits of your labor may never be experienced in your lifetime. You are the prize. May you find peace, freedom, and joy in the struggle.
I received that, Ashe. That was really beautiful.
That's for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell people how can we work with. So 2 questions. The first is you've dropped some nuggets on how to get free, but I want you to maybe just kind of recap that. What are some tools to starting your healing journey if you have nowhere to start. For me, I really want to learn how to meditate better. My mind is always going. And so my goal is to work myself up to 1 hour of meditation uninterrupted. And so I'm starting with like morning meditations for like 10 to 15 minutes. I'll let y'all know as I get higher. So like, what are some of those, what's an on-ramp to folks who are trying to heal themselves? Maybe they feel tired or they feel de-energized or they feel whatever that is. They feel anxious, they feel anger, they feel sadness. Folks that are listening to that, or maybe they don't feel any of those things. They feel numb because they're in some sort of cycle. What are some tools that you would suggest people start to do to just start that healing process if you're starting from ground zero?
Okay, I'm going to give 3 tools. My first tool is going to be your food. And I know nobody likes to talk about this because we love what we eat. But our food is energy. The fuel that you put in your body is always going to reflect the energy that you have. So if you're in a place, in a state where you're low, you're depressed, you're sad, you're emotional, you're crying, eating meat is dead. It's flesh. It's not alive. It's only going to put you deeper into that. So at those states, and there may be some times where you can consume it. I'm not saying that you can't consume it all the time. Only you know works well for your body. But if you are in a sad, depressed state, you have to eat foods from the sun, foods that have life. That's what's going to uplift you. Green juices, salads, sprouts. You can't go and cuss somebody out and you just drink a green juice. Like you're happy, you know? So I'll say that's something that's tangible that you have access to. If you are feeling sad, go drink a green juice, go eat a salad. Our food is really our life. So that'll be my first tip. That's something that you have access to. Sugars, fatty foods, salty foods, those are things that we eat to comfort us. And we're used to that. Like it's subconscious. You don't even think about it. Like you're sad, you want to go eat a tub of ice cream. Become a little bit more aware of that. And it's like, oh, I'm eating that to comfort a hard emotion that I don't want to feel right now. Instead, go and eat some live food, some life, and it's going to elevate your vibration. It's going to help you feel better. So I'll say that as number 1 is your food. You have control over that.
Okay, so food. So we got food.
Yes. But our food isn't just the food we physically consume. Our food is also the music we listen to. If you're sad, don't go and listen to sad music. If you're in a place where your anxiety is bad, don't go watch a show or a movie with high anxiety that'll going to intense your anxiety. So shows with violence or some of these documentaries on Netflix about like the murderer who lives next door or whatever, that's only going to heighten the vibration that you're already feeling. So feed yourself the things that you want to feel, which is high vibrational stuff. So everything that you consume is your food. I'll say that. Another thing, as far as your meditation journey, which that's a beautiful goal that you set, but also give yourself some grace. Getting to that place where you can meditate for an hour, it's such a beautiful space when you get there, but allow yourself to gradually grow as you grow.
I definitely am. Be clear.
This isn't a space where you can set like hardcore goals and I'm going to do that. Like
I just want to be able to get into a deep meditative state for an extended period of time I just want to be able to get my mind and my body there and flow.
Yes.
So I'm setting an hour, but it might not be an hour, right? Yes. Like it might be something else, but that's what my personal goal is. I want to feel that, experience that, and center myself enough to access that.
Yes, this is my work. So this gives me so much joy to talk about. First off, I recommend for you to attend a Zentola and the Sound Bullets meditation. We travel nationwide, hosting mindfulness experiences, teaching people about the power of sound healing and meditation and breath work. We travel the world, so follow Zentola and the Bullets on Instagram to see our next tour date. I promise you, Delrisha, if you come to a Zentola meditation, you will be, I say under, but it's really just in a state of meditation. You will at least get there for like 45 minutes and it will be so much bliss and healing and joy.
Done.
Yes.
I'm there.
I'll also say a big way that I was able to get deeper in my meditation journey is there's a sweet spot right when you wake up in the morning. So, you know, when you wake up and you're still conscious, but you're still a little asleep, but you're awake, like right before you open your eyes. I listen to meditations on YouTube. So I'll just turn on a meditation on YouTube, whether it's a gratitude meditation, self-confidence, motivation, whatever it is that you want to welcome into energy, money manifest, whatever the energy is that you want to welcome into your day, into your timeline at that moment. And I lay there and I listen to it. They can be 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever, but you're still in a sleep state a little bit, but you're up. That is a really, really good space for you to start getting deeper into your meditation practice.
I did that this morning with my meditation was on overthinking. It was a 15-minute overthinking exercise that I did.
And you can use the Calm app. You can use Headspace or so many other apps that you can use for meditation as well. That's also a really, really beautiful space to manifest. So that's where you can like visualize what you want to bring into your timeline for that day. That's also the time when I ask God, who do you want me to call today? Who do you want me to talk to today? What emails do you want me to send out today? Who do you want me to ask for forgiveness for? Who do you want me to apologize to? Like all of that time is, they say prayers when you talk to God, and meditation is a space to listen. In that time period is when you'll get the answers. I want to say too, as far as your healing journey and you wanting to know more tools, ask God, ask spirit. All of our journeys are different. So the same way I can say, oh, I don't eat meat anymore, or I don't smoke weed anymore. I'm not saying that eating meat or smoking weed is bad for anyone else. Only you can decide what works well for you. And so ask and you shall receive. So if you ask spirit, if you ask God to guide you, open up a path, show me synchronicities, show me the way, show me the door, show me where you want me to go, show me who you don't want me to talk to, show me who's for me, show me who's not for me, it'll reveal itself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So we got food, number one, and food is not just the food that you consume, but it's also especially the food that you consume.
Meditate every day.
Number two, meditate every day. And so start small, whatever's comfortable for you. 5 minutes, even 3 minutes, just straight think, just focused on concentrated meditation where that's the only thing that you're doing. For me, my mind is a floater. I've gotten a lot better at that now, but meditation is not something you'll know overnight. It's something that requires consistent discipline.
It's a muscle. You'll keep practicing it and you'll get better.
Exactly. Just like working out. And then the third, ask God. So whatever your spiritual practice is, whether that is Islam or Christianity or energy or any other religion that falls, any other religion or spiritual practice, getting centered spiritually and talking to God or whatever that means for you.
Your ancestors, your spirit tribe, your energy, whatever it is that means the higher source for you.
Love that. I love that. And I was going to ask, how can people work with you? But it sounds like you go ahead and tell us one more time, how can people find you and work with you? I'm going to go ahead and put the information for your business in all the stuff in the comments and the description. But how can people interact with you when they come and pursue you for work?
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Myeisha.Essex. That's MYEISHA Essex, ESSEX. You can also reach out to me as far as Essex Media Group, which is my digital agency. I do digital strategy, I do social media, I do talent management, and I also curate wellness events. So if that falls into the space of something that you're looking to grow, please reach out to me put my email here.
There it goes.
Thank you. And also, if you would love to learn more about mindfulness meditation, please follow Zentola and the Bullets. It's ZENTOLA and the Bullets on Instagram. It's the first mindfulness act of its kind with the goal of really healing globally through the power of meditation and sound. We tour, we travel, we do work in colleges, in juvenile detention centers, really just teaching populations across the US about these tools and the healing effects of it. So when we come to a city near you, I hope to see your face.
Absolutely. Everybody, Myeisha Essex.
This is great. Thank you for having me.
You brought a word on today. I feel like you really share some pretty key tools and resources that people can tap into in your story, so thank you so much for being here to share that and express that. And I can't wait to experience, a live sound meditation. I was trying to get down there for your panel that you had. Was that 2 weeks ago now, the week before last? Girl, long story. Why that didn't work out, which I got to update you on.
All things in alignment.
All things in alignment. Well, it was a busy time. I was going to try to squeeze it in anyway, but I really wanted to be there, but I can't wait for you to come up here when that's happening.
It's in the works. Bay Area, we're coming.
Bay Area, we're coming. I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you too. Thank you. This has been great.
We can all learn from the untold stories in each of us, regardless of where you come from. And now I'm excited to share these stories with you. This is Epic Conversations.